And showtime! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. Look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network, also a co-host of this program. I am joined this week, as I am every week, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement advisor to MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Rich, but more importantly, how are you doing this week?
You know what? I am going to go out on a limb and guess that I'm doing really, really well this week. And I say guess because we are actually pre-recording this episode. When you are listening to this, folks, I will be deep into a vacation, lolling in the sun somewhere. So I'm doing really, really well when people are listening to or watching this.
Well earned, Rich. Yes, we've time jumped a little bit. So awesome.
And you know what? As people are enjoying this program, the RSA Security Conference is either underway or possibly just wrapping up at about this point in time. One of the biggest security-related landmarks on the conference circuit every year. It's virtual this year. I will not be attending, obviously, because I am on break. But in honor of the RSA show, let's talk a little bit about security this week. And what I'm going to do here quickly is run through 4 technologies. So based on input from analysts and other sources, this is not my expertise because I have none. I just report on the industry. Here are 4 security technologies that I think are going to be big over the course of the next 12 months or so. So one of them actually ties into something that I believe we talked about very recently on the 5-Minute Roundup. And this is Extended Detection and Response, or XDR. People in the audience are probably more familiar with EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response. That's based on input specifically from the endpoint. If you start collecting input as well from firewalls and email security systems and other sources and correlating that information, you get a broader view of the threat landscape in an environment. And a lot of the analysts, are very bullish on XDR adoption. As I mentioned, Sophos has a product just out at this point. Fortinet and Trend Micro have had XDR-related announcements. That's something to keep an eye on. Another one coming up this year, I think you're going to see more investment in mobile security. A lot of talk out there about cloud security, and rightly so, but a lot of people, the same people who are utilizing those cloud services from home or wherever they are on the go, are doing so from mobile devices. And Analysis Mason, which dedicates a lot of attention to the SMB market, sees spending on mobile security systems among SMBs going from $5.5 billion last year to 12.6 billion by 2025. So quite a bit of growth in that market, and you're going to see a lot of that momentum happening in the next 12 months. Third technology that's worth keeping an eye on is something called deception technology. Now, this is something that I became aware of a number of years ago when I stumbled across a vendor called Illusive, Illusive, and their whole approach to security is something that I had really never encountered at that time. And the idea was, say you're protecting an SMB with 10 servers. Well, if somebody breaches that network and comes in there, what they're going to see isn't 10 servers, but 1,000 servers, all but 10 of which are fakes. Now, if you're an administrator, you're only seeing the 10 servers that are real. Those others aren't getting in your way. It's the attacker who has to kind of figure out what's real and what isn't. And the instant that they touch a phony server, which is probably the first thing they're going to do, an alert goes off. I don't know that Illusive was the first company in this category, but there are enough companies apparently doing this that it has a name. It's called deception technology, and it's beginning to pick up momentum. An analyst named John Oltzik, whose work I like from Enterprise Strategy Group, says it's going to be big in 2021. And then last but not least, biometric authentication. Cloud security is all about identity and access management, but traditional identity and access management solutions can still be vulnerable. In the era of deep fakes and vishing, phony voice attacks, systems that utilize both some of those more traditional technologies and facial recognition in tandem are going to be more and more needed and more useful. So drawing on some expertise from people, Eric, those are four technologies that if I was covering RSA this week, I would probably be writing about.
Yeah, and we've been covering, as you mentioned, kind of XDR. I love the House of Mirrors kind of strategy, right? It reminded me when you were talking about, having 1,000 servers and all that. It just brought me back to a scene in the Bruce Lee movie Enter the Dragon, where he's, fighting the antagonist or the evil guy Han, and he's in that House of Mirrors, and they're going through that battle. I think that's pretty interesting. And I know that from a as we continue to evolve the technology itself, I'm definitely appreciating more of the biometric security technologies that are coming about, of the facial recognition stuff. The concern there, yes, is the deep fakes, and you're using the term vishing, with so this is like social engineering automated, right? So these attackers are really leveraging what we as channel pros rely on to help deliver services from an automation perspective. They're taking these technologies and then automating them to, for evil, right? So using their powers for evil. And I think that, we're still in this kind of horse race to catch up and prevent some of these attacks. And in fact, you know, last week, President Joe Biden signed the executive order trying to reinforce some of the requirements for channel pros to do business with the federal government. And in fact, one of the requirements is that it requires IT service providers to tell the government about cybersecurity breaches that could impact U.S. networks and remove certain contractual barriers that might stop providers from flagging breaches. So I think that's just one of the several points here that we all need to educate ourselves about when we're moving forward in delivering these services to federal, state, and local governments, because these executive orders have been in my understanding from reading some articles, have been in the works for months and are just now moving forward. And my question is, what does everyone think about these things? Do they go far enough, or do they not go far enough? And I think what I'm reading so far indicates that these are kind of like baby steps. I think that we need to take a much more aggressive posture in light of the hacks recently against Colonial Pipeline and the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. These folks are attacking our electrical grids and attempting these types of things. So all of these four technologies that you've talked about will certainly become very, very valuable as we develop a more effective and intentional strategy to try to, like I say, catch up with these cyber criminals and prevent some of these things from happening.
It's a whole different topic, and a good one maybe for us to dive into on a future show. But the whole future of regulation in managed services is a huge issue that I'm not sure is as much on the radar of MSPs as it should be. The federal government move you're talking about there is a huge indicator of where we're headed, and I completely agree that we're talking baby steps here. Now, there is a regulation in place in the state of Louisiana that requires MSPs to register with the state,
Right.
report breaches, and report any instance in which a customer pays a ransom, for example. So you're starting to see some of these reporting requirements go into place, but I don't think there's anybody who believes that is sufficient. I think there is a growing recognition that if you are going to be providing security services in a very hostile, dangerous kind of landscape right now, you need to maintain certain standards, have certain qualifications. I think it is very much an open question who gets to define what that is, how and when those go into place. But we're headed there. There's no question about it. And just this, in the last week or two, that Colonial Pipeline, Tulsa, the examples that you cite are further examples of what's going to push the federal government and more state governments to start cracking down on who gets to call themselves a provider of security services, because it's really dangerous out there.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to make certain that the response is commensurate with the threat. And like I say, yeah, let's keep talking about this, Rich, as we continue to identify, the movements in this regulation and regulatory kind of discussion that's happening, because it started in Louisiana, and it's going to permeate. Usually, we see kind of California and New York start these big movements, but Louisiana, for instance, that's an indicator that uh, other states aren't waiting, as they typically do, to see what some of these folks that typically drive new change forward. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting landscape here moving forward.
So the four technologies I was talking about before are technologies that I have learned about by reading analyst reports and the like, and that has a connection to your tip of the week.
Yes, it does, Rich. A nice intro. So, my tip of the week is, and I know that I'll start off by saying, hey, nobody likes more email, least of all me. And I think sometimes, Rich, I'm probably signed up for every email list on the planet because of all the stuff I get. But there are some specific types of email that I think we should all be subscribed to. And those are the emails that allow us to receive industry reports and benchmark surveys. And these are typically done by vendors and distributors to their channel partners. And I really look forward to identifying those and getting those and reviewing them, because this is how I try to stay abreast of the movements and the changes in the industry, and what the clients are saying they're going to spend, and the forecasting and what they're buying, and also what channel pros are selling and what's in their solution stack and what their challenges are. And it's really, really informative for channel pros to gather this information, i.e., to stay on top of what buyers are buying, but also to understand what other MSPs and IT pros and channel pros are selling, and their pricing methodologies and the tools they're using and what's in their solution stack, just to remain competitive and to have that edge. Information is power, as they say, right, Rich? So that's the type of email and the type of information and data that I always tuck away into a folder. And then every couple of weeks, I have some time dedicated to go through that and just inform myself. And that also guides my, feedback and coaching and consulting with partners that may not have this information at hand, but it's available to all of us.
If you're running an IT business, you are undoubtedly extremely busy with whatever is happening right now. And it's hard to kind of tear yourself away from whatever that is, whatever fires you're fighting in the moment. But the smartest, most successful channel pros that I know are very, very curious. They're continually kind of feeding their brain with information about what's new and what's next, because they want to know how they can use that to grow their business, and they want to get there, if not first, then fast, basically. And so it's the kind of thing that you have to make time for, and you have a discipline about that, which I think is great. That you're going to book some time, collect these things, book some time, read through them, whatever it is that works for you. I really do think it's a useful use of your time to read up on what's happening in the industry and think about what that can mean for your company and its future.
And I categorize that dedicated time as working on the business time rather than in the business, and as we should all be carving time out to do on a regular basis.
All right. Well, that leaves us time for just one more story this week, Eric. And it's an interesting one here. It involves children, Amazon, and dessert. I mean, a whole bunch of good things here. So, what we're talking about in this particular case is a 4-year-old who was, doing remote learning on his tablet. He was having some sort of problem with his tablet, and so his mom loaned him her laptop. And we're talking security here. Somehow or another, the kid figured out how to hack his way into his mom's Amazon Prime account. Now, he had learned a little bit earlier that two of his favorite things in the world had come together. He's a 4-year-old kid, big SpongeBob fan, also a big popsicle fan. And it turns out that there are now SpongeBob shaped popsicles out there. So the kid gets into the Amazon Prime account and orders, wait for it, 918 boxes of SpongeBob popsicles. Which his mom discovered when they showed up. 3 giant boxes, 70 pounds each, filled with SpongeBob popsicles. Now, do you want to guess, Eric? Do you want to take a stab at what 918 boxes of SpongeBob popsicles costs?
I can't even imagine.
$2,619. Now, all's well that ends well, folks. This is a working mom. This could actually have been a big, big problem because you can't return the popsicles. And she was talking to the credit card company, but they hadn't really acted on this. But a friend created a GoFundMe. Within 24 hours, people chipped in and paid for the popsicles, and everything is okay. But careful about loaning your laptop to a 4-year-old SpongeBob fan who's also into popsicles.
Well, I tell you, they're going to be a security analyst later. That kid. And who lives in a popsicle under the sea? SpongeBob does.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, folks, that is all the time we've got for you this week on the 5-Minute Roundup. The 5-Minute Roundup is both a video and a podcast. If you are watching the video right now, hey, become a subscriber to the podcast. We are on all the different podcast venues that you might be using. Sign up for a subscription there. If you like the show, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating, because if you do, it's going to make it easier for other people to find us, and I'm sure those other people will appreciate it. If you are listening to the podcast right now, hey, check us out on video. We're on YouTube. Easiest way to find us is on the ChannelPro Network channel on YouTube. If you click the little bell icon there, you're actually going to get notified when the new episodes go up. You want to read more about what's happening in the world of cybersecurity, you want to get great business growth advice for your company, please visit channelpronetwork.com every day, because awesome new stuff's going up there for you every day. And to learn more about Eric and the work he does with his clients, please visit ericsimpson.com, ERICK Simpson.com. So that is our time for this week. We're going to be back again next week with another episode for you. Until then, folks, please enjoy the rest of your week. I know I'm enjoying the rest of my week, and Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.
Ready.